If you're watching this, I need you to believe me. Because either something is wrong with my memory, or I was never supposed to exist the way I do now. The priest said I was never baptized. He sounded so sure. But I remember the church. I remember the incense. And I remember the water. Because it burned. This isn't a ghost story. This is something else. Something older. Something that's been following me since that day. Even if no one else remembers it. I think it started when I was 7. We had just come back from visiting my grandmother's village, and my mom was tucking me into bed. I asked her something simple, something innocent. "Mom, was I baptized?" She smiled. A warm, motherly smile. "Of course you were," she said, brushing my hair. "Where?" That's when something changed. Her smile faded just a little, not fully. But I noticed. She looked at the wall for a second like she was trying to remember something she wasn't supposed to forget. Then she said, quietly, "It was a small church. You were just a baby." She kissed my forehead and turned off the lights. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of what she said, but because of what I started remembering. I remembered a dark stone church. Old pews. Thick air. I remembered someone in white robes, and incense. And I remembered water. Not the way most people remember water. No, this water hissed when it touched my skin. I remember crying. I remember something laughing behind me. And most of all, I remember a man's voice that didn't belong to the priest. It said my name. But the name wasn't mine. The next morning, I told my mom what I remembered. She went pale. "You were just a baby," she said. "You wouldn't remember anything." But the way she said it, she wasn't trying to correct me. She was trying to convince herself. Years went by. I didn't talk about it again. But the memory never left. In fact, it got clearer. Every time I stepped into a church, I'd smell that incense. I'd hear the faint echo of water hissing. And sometimes, when I looked at the holy water bowl by the doors, I swear it would ripple, like it knew me. Last month, I started digging. My mom had an old family photo album. I found a picture of me as a baby, dressed in white, being held beside a stone basin. A man in white robes stood behind us. His face was partially turned, but something about it looked wrong. The robe looked like a priest's. But the neck had no collar. The man was smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. And in the background, I saw something even worse. In the shadow of the church window, a figure with no face stood watching. I couldn't let it go. The more I stared at the picture, the more I realized how wrong it felt. Not just the faceless figure. Not just the fake smile. The background, the church itself, looked like something out of a dream. The walls were too dark. The stained glass didn't show saints or angels, it showed shapes. Twisted symbols. Spirals. Something that looked like a hand with too many fingers. And the altar was black stone. Not wood. Not marble. Black stone. I asked my mom again. Where exactly was I baptized? She looked at me like I was speaking another language. I told you. It was in your grandmother's village. A church near the river. What was it called? Her mouth opened. Then closed. She blinked. I don't remember. She left the room without another word. And I swear, as she walked away, I heard her whisper, it wasn't supposed to matter. That night, I searched every directory, archive, even asked old neighbors. No church near the river. No priest with that name. No records of any baptism there. It was like the building never existed. So I took the photo and drove back to that village myself. I hadn't been there in years. The roads were worse, overgrown. Most of the old homes were abandoned. But I found the clearing. I found the hill I remembered. And I found the ruins. There was no steeple. No walls. Just black stone at the edge of the forest. But the stones. They weren't scattered. They were laid out like a floor. Like someone rebuilt the foundation, but never finished. I found the altar too. Same black slab as in the photo. Carved into it were 3 letters I didn't recognize, and underneath them, someone had scratched a single word. Mine. The next part is hard to explain. As I stood there, holding that photo, I felt a pressure in my chest. Like something was pushing from the inside out. Like I was being watched, not by something near me, but by something under me. I stepped back. And that's when I heard it. The faint sound of dripping water. Not from the trees. Not from rain. From beneath the altar. I left. I ran. I didn't look back. But that night, back in my room, I had the worst dream I've ever had. I was a child again. Kneeling at the edge of that stone basin. The man in white leaned over me. His face was hollow, like clay that hadn't been sculpted yet. And in the dream, he said, "You weren't baptized. You were claimed." Then he pressed his hand into the water. And it hissed again. I woke up gasping. My pillow soaked. But my hands were dry. Except for one fingertip. Red. Burned. Like something had touched me. I didn't sleep the next night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see that basin again. The black water. The man's hands. That voice saying I wasn't baptized, that I was claimed. What does that even mean? I started noticing changes. Subtle, at first. The reflection in my bathroom mirror seemed delayed. Like it blinked half a second after I did. I'd pick up the phone and swear I'd already heard the voice on the other end, before they even spoke. And once, while walking to the kitchen at night, I passed a mirror in the hallway. And saw myself still standing there in the reflection, long after I had walked away. I stopped going out. I stopped talking to my mom. Because one night, she called me by a name I'd never heard before. "Dinner's ready, Malachi." I froze. My name isn't Malachi. When I asked her why she said that, she stared at me, dead serious, and said, "That's the name they gave you at the baptism." Then she covered her mouth. And ran to her room. I found her later that night with every photo of my childhood spread out across the floor. All of them, except the one of the baptism, were torn, burned, or soaked through. And she kept whispering to herself. They told me to forget. I was supposed to forget. That's when I knew I had to go back. Not just to the ruins, to the church records. If I couldn't trust my mom, I needed someone who might know the truth. I called every nearby parish. Most had never heard of the church. But one man, an old retired priest named Father Elias, said something strange when I mentioned the name of the town. He went quiet for a long time. Then said, "We don't talk about that site anymore. But if you found it, if it's speaking to you, you need to come see me immediately." He lived 2 hours away. I drove the same night. His home was covered in crosses, salt lines, old books with unmarked covers. He didn't shake my hand. Just pointed me to the chair, then closed every curtain in the house. "Tell me what you saw," he said. I told him about the church ruins. The dreams. The picture. The water that hissed. And he listened, silently, until I said one thing. There was something watching me in the photo. A figure with no face. His expression changed. He stood, walked into the other room, and came back with a single black and white photo. Same ruins. Same altar. But this time, the figure wasn't just watching. It was standing at the basin. That church, he said, was never registered with any parish. We don't know who built it. But we know people who visited it came back, different. I asked what he meant by different. He said, some didn't speak the same. Some stopped recognizing their families. One started writing in a language no one could identify. And one, he paused, believed he had someone else's soul. Then he looked me dead in the eye. The ritual you described. It wasn't a baptism. It was an offering. I asked him what they were offering. A vessel, he whispered. To something that doesn't belong in this world. What did they call it? I asked. He hesitated. Then said, the one with no face. I left Father Elias's house in silence. He didn't bless me. He didn't pray for me. He just said, if it knows you know, it won't stop. On the drive home, I kept the windows up. But I still heard something breathing in the back seat. That night, I found the baptism photo again. I hadn't looked at it since the dream started getting worse. But now, something felt off. The shadows in the corners of the picture had changed. I swear they were closer. And when I held it under the light, something faint was etched on the back, something I had never noticed before. A word. Burned into the paper. Malachi. My hand started shaking. I threw the photo into the sink and turned on the tap. The water hissed. Like it recognized me. Like it was still burning. My phone buzzed. A voice note. No name. No number. Just a blank message with a timestamp, 3:16 a.m. I hit play. And I heard myself. Crying. Whispering. They're trying to finish it. The name isn't yours. Give it back. The next day, I confronted my mom. I showed her the photo. The word. Who is Malachi? I demanded. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just sat down. And said, you died when you were 3 months old. Silence. I waited. We didn't tell anyone, she said. We didn't bury you. We brought you to them. Who? The ones in the robes. They said they could bring you back. But they needed a name. Her hands were shaking. They said you wouldn't remember. That it wouldn't matter. That what came back would be close enough. I don't remember how I left the house. Or how I got home. All I know is that when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself. Not fully. My reflection blinked before I did. It smiled when I didn't. And when I said my name out loud, it shook its head. I'm writing this now because I don't know how much longer I have. The dreams aren't dreams anymore. The water runs cold in the daytime, but hisses every night. And sometimes I hear that name, Malachi. Whispered through the vents, the faucet, even the fridge. Like it's waiting to be spoken out loud again. Like speaking it would make me, what? Complete? Or consumed? I keep thinking about the baptism. About how the priest didn't wear a collar. About how he smiled without eyes. About how the water burned. And now I wonder. Maybe it wasn't holy water at all. Maybe it was just a test. To see if I could survive what they put inside me. Last night, I got another voice message. It wasn't in my voice this time. It was layered. Hundreds of voices at once. Saying the same thing. Finish the claiming. And now the reflection doesn't follow my movements anymore. It waits. Like it knows something I don't. If you're hearing this, watching this, don't say my name. Don't say Malachi. Because whatever it is, it's listening. And it's looking for someone new. Story 2. If you ever find a tape labeled with your name and a date you can't remember, don't watch it. I did. It was footage of my first birthday. Except I wasn't in it. Not once. Not even for a second. And now, mirrors don't show my reflection anymore. It started when I was cleaning out the attic in my parents' house. They're both gone now, past a few months apart. I'd come back to pack up the house, settle the estate, all the boring things death leaves behind. That's when I found it. A dusty cardboard box labeled, Birthday, Age 1. Inside, a single VHS tape. No cover. No writing. Just the word, me, written in permanent marker. I don't remember much about my first birthday. Obviously. But I'd seen photos. My mom always told me it was beautiful, balloons, cake, everyone laughing. So why did this feel wrong? I wiped the tape off and brought it down to the basement. There's still an old TV and VHS player down there. My dad was the nostalgic type. I pressed play. Static. Then, the sound of soft, distorted piano music. And a handheld camera panning across the living room. My heart sank. Because I knew that room. I'd stood in it hundreds of times growing up. But something was off. The furniture was in the wrong places. The wallpaper looked darker. And in the corner, there was a bassinet. But it was empty. The video kept playing. I saw my parents, young, smiling, clapping as if someone was crawling across the floor. My uncle holding up a gift bag. My grandma blowing out candles on a cake that said, "Happy birthday, James." That's my name. But I wasn't in the video. Not once. They kept talking to someone off screen. Laughing. Feeding cake to something just below the frame. But the camera never showed it. Never showed me. I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe I just crawled out of frame the whole time. Maybe I was camera shy as a baby. But then I noticed something else. Every time someone looked into the lens, their smile dropped. Like they saw something behind the camera. Something they didn't expect. And then the tape glitched. Hard. Like it skipped several seconds. The sound cut out. And when it came back, the room was empty. Everyone was gone. Just one figure remained. A tall shape in the farthest corner, wearing my dad's shirt, but with a face I didn't recognize. I stopped the tape. But the image kept flickering on the screen, like the VHS refused to eject. Then I heard something behind me. Soft breathing. I turned. The basement was empty. But the TV was still playing static, and a voice whispered, "You were never there." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the tape. About how everyone looked at something that wasn't in the frame. About how no one mentioned me by name. And that thing at the end. What was it wearing my father's shirt? The next few days were a blur. I stopped answering calls. I didn't leave the house. Every time I looked in the mirror, I expected my face to flicker. Like I was part of the static now. I even stopped saying my name. It felt borrowed. Like someone else's shirt I'd been wearing my whole life. Then something happened. I woke up to find a third tape sitting on my kitchen counter. I hadn't been in the attic. I hadn't left the bedroom. But there it was. Labeled in shaky, childlike handwriting. Do not watch, too late. I didn't remember writing that. But the pen beside it was still uncapped. The ink was still wet. And it was my handwriting. I shouldn't have watched it. I know that now. But when you start losing your memories, you chase any proof you ever existed. So I put it in. This time, there was no party. No people. Just a dark hallway. Flickering lights. And the camera, moving on its own, slowly approaching a bedroom door. My bedroom door. The timestamp on the corner said, tomorrow. 3:14 a.m. I paused the tape. My hands were shaking. I rewound it just to be sure. But the timestamp didn't change. Still, tomorrow. The hallway on the tape? It looked exactly like mine. Every crack. Every light bulb. Even the dent on the doorframe where I bumped into it carrying laundry. This wasn't a reenactment. This was a recording from the future. I fast-forwarded. The door opened. And there I was, asleep in bed. But something else was standing in the corner. Watching me. The camera zoomed in. Slowly. On my sleeping face. Until it filled the entire screen. Then it glitched, and for one split second, just before the tape ended, my eyes opened. And looked directly into the lens. I didn't sleep that night. And when 3:14 came, I locked the door. Blocked it with furniture. Sat in the corner with every light on. But just like the tape showed, my bedroom door still creaked open. Slowly. Like it wasn't pushed. But invited. And then, from the hallway, came a whisper that didn't belong to me. Are you ready to come back? The next morning, I did the only thing I could think of. I called my aunt. She was my mother's older sister, lived upstate, barely spoke to us growing up. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. But I remembered something strange she said at the wake. I always wondered how long it would take for you to find the tapes. At the time, I thought she was just rambling. Grieving. Now I wasn't so sure. She picked up on the first ring. Didn't even say hello. Just, James. Tell me exactly what you saw. I told her everything. The birthday footage. The tapes that showed nothing. The figure wearing my dad's shirt. The blank-faced child. The photo with arms holding a cake, but no person attached. And the tape marked, tomorrow. Her voice got quiet. I need you to listen to me very carefully, she said. That house was never meant to be yours. What are you talking about? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, your mother made a mistake. She tried to raise you like a normal child. But you were never meant to stay. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. What do you mean stay? She took a shaky breath. You were never born, James. Not fully. Your mother tried to bring something back. Something she thought she lost. The ritual was never completed. The child was never fully claimed. I said nothing. I couldn't. She kept talking, faster now. You weren't in the photos because the camera couldn't see you. The birthday wasn't a party, it was an offering. That's why you were never in the tapes. The house is remembering. It's pulling the past back into place. What does that mean? I asked, choking. Her voice cracked. It means you're starting to fade, James. And whatever she borrowed your soul from wants it back. She told me to burn the tapes. All of them. But when I went to the basement, the VHS player was gone. Just an empty space. And in its place, a fourth tape. No label. No handwriting. Just a single red fingerprint on the corner. I should have run. Left the house. But I played it. Static. Then, an image. A nursery. Except it wasn't from my parents' house. I didn't recognize the walls, the crib, the flickering mobile spinning above. But I heard my mother's voice. Singing. And then, sobbing. The camera turned. Someone was holding it. Breathing heavily. Walking toward the crib. I braced myself. But there was no baby inside. Just an open space. A folded blanket. A small card that read, Malachi. That's not my name. That's not my name. That's not my name. But I remembered it. Not like a memory. Not like a dream. Like a word I used to answer to, in something older than this life. And as soon as I said it aloud, every light in the basement went out. And the TV screen showed a face. Mine. But not. Paler. Eyes all black. Mouth open too wide. And it whispered, "Welcome home." I don't know how long I was sitting in front of the TV. Hours? A day? I tried calling my aunt back, but the number didn't exist anymore. Not disconnected. Not out of service. Just, gone. Like she was never there. I stayed up all night with the lights on. But the house didn't care. Every time I blinked, something in the room had moved. A chair turned slightly. A photo frame flipped around. Once, the front door was wide open, even though I'd locked it from the inside. The next night, the final tape appeared. Not in the basement. On my bed. Wrapped in an old baby blanket I didn't recognize. This one had no label. No markings. Just a faint hiss when I picked it up, like it was breathing. I didn't want to watch it. But I already knew what was on it. It wasn't a memory. It was a goodbye. When I pressed play, the screen stayed black. But I heard something. My mother's voice, from far away. She was praying. Whispering words I didn't understand. And then, another voice. Deep, calm, ancient, said. The vessel held. The child lived. But now, the payment is due. A long silence. Then the sound of screaming. A baby's scream. Sharp. Piercing. And suddenly, I remembered that sound. Because it wasn't a recording. I'd heard it before. Inside me. My whole life. That was me. I ran to the bathroom mirror. I looked at my face, trying to recognize myself. But I didn't see anything familiar anymore. Not the nose. Not the eyes. Not the thing looking back. My reflection didn't copy me. It just stared. Like it had been waiting for this moment. Then it blinked, and I didn't. And it whispered something I couldn't hear. So I leaned closer. Its lips moved again. This time I heard it. You were never baptized. And that's when everything in the house changed. The walls cracked. Light bulbs shattered. The floor under my feet pulsed like a heartbeat. And from every room, every screen, every photo. One voice spoke, layered over itself like 1,000 mouths. Return what was borrowed. Return what was borrowed. Return what was borrowed. I ran outside. But the street was gone. Just fog. Endless gray. Like the world had stopped rendering. And in that silence, I finally understood. The tapes weren't memories. They were warnings. Every moment I watched was another thread unraveling. I had never been here. Not really. My life was a placeholder. And whoever, or whatever, was coming to collect, was almost here. I went back to the living room. Everything was silent now. The final tape was still playing. But instead of video, it showed a message. Last known presence, James. Erase? I didn't press anything. I didn't move. But the screen blinked once. And chose. Yes. I felt it in my body. Like gravity reversed. My fingers grew cold. My breath slowed. And I heard my mother's voice again. Crying. Whispering. I'm sorry. I just wanted you back. And then, nothing. I don't remember what happened after that. Just, the feeling of fading. Like someone closed a file. Or shut off a light. I think I'm still here. Somewhere. But when I look in the mirror now, the person looking back isn't me. Subscribe to Mind Twist Horror for more terrifying black screen horror stories, cursed memory tales, and true psychological nightmares. New horror videos every week, perfect for sleep, if you dare. Don't miss what's waiting in the dark.